Hi everyone, my name is Karen, this is my channel RatherBeReading, and today I'm bringing to you my May mid-month wrap-up. May has been kind of a strange reading month. It's been one of those reading months where, particularly in the last week and a half, I felt like I really haven't got much read, but the numbers aren't too bad. In the first half, so from the 1st through the 15th of May, I've managed to finish 11 books, and I haven't been listening to a lot of audiobooks this month just because I haven't had many of my holds or anything have come in. So I haven't been listening to as many audiobooks as I normally would. I think I've only listened to, maybe one in this first half of the month, but I have still managed to complete 11 books, so I am pretty happy with it. But let's jump straight in and talk about all 11 books. I will leave a link in the description box down below to the 2 reading vlogs that I've done that cover this period of time as well for you guys to check out if you want to see any more about what I thought about the books kind of in the moment. Then do check out those 2 vlogs, which as I said will be linked down below. But let's jump straight in and talk about all 11 books. So the very first book that I read in the month of May was Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. This is the first book in the Grisha trilogy. This is a reread for me. The Grisha trilogy is a young adult fantasy trilogy that's basically set in a world which is inspired by Russia that has this type of magic system where there are some people who have magical abilities, and you're kind of tested to see whether you have these abilities, and the people who have the magical abilities are called Grisha, and you're tested for that when you're young, and then if you are shown that you have powers, then you're sent to a school for Grisha, and you're kind of raised, on how to use your powers, yada yada, and you form kind of part of it. You end up joining the second army, which is an army of Grisha, blah blah blah. The main character in this, Alina, was tested as a child. She didn't have magical abilities. Her and her best friend Mel end up joining the normal first army when of non-magical people when they are of age, and then one day they're crossing this area called I want to say the Unsea, the Shadowfold, which is in the Unsea, which is basically this darkness, this area that's been corrupted by dark magic and is super super dark, and it's really dangerous to cross because there are these creatures in the darkness that kill humans, and so they're going on a journey with the army and whatever that's crossing. See, this is a really long-winded synopsis, I apologize. And basically they are attacked by these creatures, and Alina's best friend Mel is going to be killed, and Alina shows that she does in fact have powers, and it's a very different power and a power that no one has really seen before. And so the story just all kind of kicks off from there. As I mentioned, this is a reread. I loved this trilogy the first time I read it. I gave this book 4.5 stars. I've kept that rating. For me, the only thing really lacking in this first book is a bit of world building. I struggled with this to remember the different types of magic and the different types of Grisha that there were, and I didn't particularly understand kind of how the world worked. There is also a little bit of kind of girl on girl hate in this, which isn't my favorite thing to read about, but I super super enjoyed this. As I mentioned, I did give this 4.5 stars. I then moved on to one of my backlist Kindle books, Cautious by Elizabeth Nilsson. This is just a novella. It is a new adult / adult romance that basically follows this girl who is in a car accident at the beginning of the book, and basically a man rescues her, and they end up having a couple of other meetings after that, and they form a relationship. I hated this novella. It was really 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 bad, very problematic in the romance, stuff that happened in it that I was that's so gross, and it wasn't romantic, and the writing was bad, and I had so many problems with it. I gave it 1 star. Do not recommend. Next, I read another Kindle backlist book, and that is The Engagement by Kimberly Freeman. This is another novella. Well, is it? That's one of the problems that I had with it, is that it is marketed on Amazon and whatever as a novella. It is free, but it turns out that it's not actually a novella. It is just the first chapter of another book by this author, and so the story is totally incomplete. It just literally just ends, and then that's it, and you don't find out anything further, and that really pissed me off. I gave this 2 stars because the writing and stuff wasn't bad, but you just don't have any more information about the story, so it's really just very incomplete and I didn't enjoy it. So like I said, 2 stars. I also forgot to mention at the top of this video that I did also DNF a book in the first half of this month. That was The Witch by Ronald Hutton. I was listening to this on audio and it was very boring. I found it extremely boring, very dry. I couldn't concentrate on it. I only listened to about 38% of it, I think it was, and I just decided not to continue with it because of that 38%, I maybe took in like 5% of that because I just couldn't concentrate on the story. My mind kept wandering because I did just find it really boring, which is disappointing because I thought this was going to be really interesting subject matter, but unfortunately for me, it just wasn't. Next, I read Siege and Storm by Leigh Bardugo. So again, this is a reread. This is the second book in the trilogy. I enjoyed this one just as much as I did the last time. I gave it 5 stars once again. I think that a lot of the character, particularly Alina, the main character, gets great character progression in this. I love the Darkling. I think he's such an interesting villain. I do have my problems with the romance in this series, but it doesn't really take away from my enjoyment of the story. Like I said, I really, really enjoyed this. I did give it 5 stars. I then read Giant Days Volume 5 by John Allison and a load of other people. This is the 5th volume, as I mentioned. I really, really enjoy this graphic novel series. This is just a contemporary graphic novel series that follows 3 characters as they are in, well, it starts off in their first year of university in the UK and just all about their lives and trying to survive as university students. Very relatable. I didn't go to university and I still find this super, super relatable. Just the characters in general and just the kind of that period of your life when you're in your like late teens, early 20s type of period outside of high school. Very, very relatable. I really, really enjoyed this volume and I gave it 4 stars. Next, I read another graphic novel and that was The Complete Mouse by Art Spiegelman. This is a biographical graphic novel. Art Spiegelman wrote this about his father who was a Holocaust survivor, and in this graphic novel the Nazis are depicted as cats and the Jewish people are depicted as mice. I didn't connect to this the way, like, as much as I thought that I was going to, but it did. I mean, it is harrowing, of course it is to read. Like, anything around World War II is going to be a really harrowing read. I really found some really interesting commentary in it on just how difficult it is for the generation following the war and every subsequent generation, and even more so as the generations go on, to ever really understand what these people went through and how these people were changed and how it affected their lives in such an ongoing basis. I found all of that really, really interesting. I gave this 4 stars. The art style for me is not like my type of art style, but the story, like I said, really harrowing. It has some great commentary in it. So again, I did give that 4 stars. I then completed my reread of the Grisha trilogy by reading Ruin and Rising by Leigh Bardugo. I loved this. Such a great ending to the trilogy. I have one main problem with the ending of this, which I'm not going to talk about because it is a spoiler, but if you do want to know what like my issue with this is, I do explain it in my review of this book on Goodreads, so do check that out if you want to know more. I love all the character progression in this though. It's so enjoyable. I gave 5 stars once again on reread. Really, really love it. Next, I read The Camera Lies by A.B. Morgan. This is a book that I received from NetGalley in exchange for an honest review. This is a thriller that is basically set around a man who is filming a documentary that's like a true crime documentary centered on this man who murdered his wife, and he admittedly murdered his wife, but he doesn't remember the crime or why he did it. Like, he doesn't have any particular reason for having killed his wife, but it is pretty evident that he did do it. And so you get kind of getting the main character, Conrad, slowly looking into the crime and everything that's gone on and so on and so forth. I didn't like this. It started out okay. I didn't mind the plot of the book from the start. I had problems with the writing. I really thought that this was written by a man. It turns out it's not. It's written by a woman, but it felt like it was written by a man. A lot of the female characters were very sexualized. And then this isn't a man thing, this is just general comment on the writing. I really didn't like all of the fat shaming in the book, and there is so much emphasis put on food, and in particular what the fat characters are eating, and I just really didn't enjoy that at all. It also, towards the end, like from the middle kind of through the second half of the book, the story really started to get really complicated, and it all kind of fell apart for me towards the end. There's kind of a court case going on, and there was so much going on in that court case that I just I was just like, that wouldn't happen. It just made so little sense to me. There was also so many like coincidences where you go, oh, of course, like, you know, these type of characters all have crossed paths, like, you know, and just continually cross each other's path, and it's just one of those things that you really have to like suspend your disbelief in order to like enjoy it, and it just didn't work for me. There was also a few things like at the end that I just thought weren't addressed again, and I thought probably should have been. It just wasn't my favorite, and in the end I gave that one 2 stars. I then read Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. This is a young adult sci-fi novel about a main character named Wade who lives in a futuristic world where the world's basically falling apart, and everyone like hooks into this virtual reality world called the Oasis. People go to school there, they work there, so on and so forth, and the creator of the Oasis, who is so rich, like the richest person on the planet, has recently died, and he has left all his money to the person who can discover the kind of Easter egg that he's left within the game, and it's all just basically about that and Wade going on a quest to try find the Easter egg. This was really enjoyable. I did find the first 60-70 pages at least to be it was a lot of world building, and for me it was a little bit info dumpy. It took quite a while for the story to get going. Once it did get going, I did really enjoy it. There's a lot of 80s pop culture references in there. I enjoyed all of that type of thing. I enjoyed all of the like blow by blow stuff of Wade in his quest and through all the little games and stuff that he has to do like on this quest. I really enjoyed it. And yeah, it was really enjoyable. Like I said, it was a bit info dumpy at the start, but overall it was really enjoyable, and I gave it 4 stars. Next, I read The Girl Who Chased the Moon by Sarah Addison Allen. So this is basically a contemporary magical realism story that follows a teenage girl whose mother has recently passed away, and her mother was estranged from her grandfather, and so she's never met her grandfather. Her grandfather didn't know that she existed, and she goes to live with her grandfather in the small town where her mother grew up. So you're following that main character, Emily, and then you're also following a character named Julia, who grew up in the same small town at the same time as Emily's mother, but moved away from the town, like in her like late teens, and has recently moved back to the town to kind of get everything in order, following a lot of debt left after her father died, but she wants to get out of this small town again as soon as possible, and you're kind of following both of those 2 characters on their journey. I really enjoyed this. I don't even know how to describe it. So there is a lot of magical realism in the town, a lot of like strange type of things, like there's the wallpaper in the bedroom where Emily lives changes like what's on the wallpaper based on your mood, like that type of thing. Very like whimsical. I really enjoyed the writing. It was very like immersive. I found Julia to be extremely relatable as a character. I really enjoyed her. There are trigger warnings in this for anxiety, suicide, and self-harm, so do be aware of that going in, but overall, I don't even know what it was. I can't put like a, you know, point a finger at exactly what it was about this book that I really, really enjoyed, but I just really, really did, and I gave it 4.25 stars. And then the final book that I read in the first half of May was Stiff, The Curious Life of Human Cadavers by Mary Roach. I did listen to this on audiobook, and it is narrated by Shelley Fraser. This is a non-fiction book that is all just about human cadavers and all of the things basically that human cadavers are used for in science and research and all that type of thing. I did find it really, really interesting. There's a lot of things that human cadavers have been used for throughout history that I had, well, I've just never put my mind to it, but it was pretty interesting, very confronting. It is one of those books where if you can't handle hearing about humans and bodily functions and the human body after death, and it's pretty graphic, you won't enjoy this. And even I don't really have a problem with anything like that, and I did find it pretty confronting in parts, but very, very interesting. As I said, in the end I gave that one 3.5 stars. So those are all of the books that I read in the first half of May. I would love to chat with you guys in the comments down below if you've read any of the books that I've read, what you thought of them, what you've been reading in this month of May so far. I would love to chat down below. Please like this video if you liked it. Please subscribe if you want to see more from my channel. That's all I have for this video today. Bye guys!